Hello everyone and welcome to the Mylio Photos coffee break. My name is Andrew and I'm a product evangelist for Mylio. What that means is my job is to help you guys be successful with the software. Today we're going to be talking about sync policies. Basically the tools that Mylio uses to help keep different things on different devices. So we're going to go in depth on what that means, how to control them, and we'll even talk a little bit about customization towards the end. Before we jump into today's topic, I do want to let you know that we have a lot of other events going on for you. We have our live Q&A every Tuesday and Thursday. That's at 11:30 a.m. Pacific. You can jump into those whenever you have questions or even just to listen along. And people bring their questions. You can unmute and ask. You can type them into the chat, whatever's convenient. And we accept questions on all levels and on a wide variety of topics. Kind of anything related to photography is fair game. So please come and join those sessions. They're a lot of fun. On Fridays, we have these coffee breaks that you are attending now. Those are at 11:30 a.m. every single week. And next week, we're going to be talking about tips to prevent and fix issues with syncing in Mylio Photos. So it's going to be carrying on from today's topic. And we're actually going to have a guest from our support team coming in to help you learn what some of those common hiccups are and how to overcome them on your own without necessarily having to get into support, or when you should reach out to the support team. So that's going to be a great session as well. I hope you guys can join us. So with that, I want to go ahead and jump into today's topic. And we're going to discuss what's on your device, how to navigate sync policies in Mylio Photos. So on the agenda, we have understanding what sync policies are and how they control storage on each device, what you need to know to choose the right sync setting for each device that you have connected to your Mylio account. And we'll talk a little bit about how to customize storage with sync collections. Now, I have an entire different coffee break that I recorded a few months ago just on sync collections. So we'll make sure we get you the link to that as well, because that goes in a lot deeper on that topic, but we'll cover it a little bit today. And I know Lori is going to share the link to that in the chat as well. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about device sync policies. So what is this? You've probably seen this in your Mylio. Maybe you've gone poking around in the dashboard and you've seen this thing called a device sync policy. Well, what this is it manages what parts of your photo library live on each device. It determines what files are stored there, whether that has originals, optimized, or thumbnails, how much space is being used on each device, so you can balance between how much quality you have of each image versus how efficient the storage needs to be. So devices with less storage available are going to have different requirements and needs than devices that have a ton of storage space. And then accessibility. This is what controls how you're able to access files when you need them. So for instance, if you are on a plane and you're on airplane mode and you have no connectivity, how to have pictures that are at full resolution on your device when you need them. Sync policies cover all of those things. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about why sync policies matter. The first thing is it prevents running out of space on each device. This is where you have differences between things that are designated as vaults versus things designated as SpaceSaver, which we'll go into more here in a little bit. And it basically just ensures that each device has the right files and gets you access when you need them. So a little bit about how syncing in Mylio Photos works. Think of Mylio Photos like a private, secure messaging system for your media. What happens is your devices authenticate using Mylio's servers. So it's like a secure handshake. Your devices go up to the servers, you log in with your device, and it creates a secure connection. After that authentication, your devices talk directly to each other. So Mylio up here, where it authenticated, Mylio never sees your media. Everything is kept secure in your own private network. If you choose to opt into something like Mylio Drive or Mylio Drive Plus, your files are automatically encrypted, meaning that anything that's stored on the Mylio servers and in the cloud can only be accessed and decrypted by a Mylio device using your account information. So again, your stuff is safe and private and secure, and that's just kind of how things work when you're syncing with Mylio Photos. So a few terms to know as we go through this presentation. This is really basic stuff. You might already know this, but if you're newer to Mylio, this is really fundamental to how Mylio Photos works. The first thing you're probably going to hear us talk about is the catalog, or possibly refer to it as the library. The catalog is the database file that tracks all of the changes in the organizational structure of your library. You're never going to mess with it, but it's under the hood. It's a file that gets installed on every single device that Mylio is aware of. You also have your metadata. This is all of the important information about each of your photos, where you have GPS or captions or face tags. These are really tiny text files that are stored next to each one of your pictures. And those are really important. So a lot of people, they don't understand why XMP sidecars are appearing in their devices when they have Mylio Photos. These are the files that store that information because Mylio Photos is what we call non-destructive, meaning it's never going to change your original file unless you specifically tell it to. So it stores that information in that sidecar file. Now, the cool thing about these files is that they are an industry standard format, meaning they can be read by a variety of different applications. So if for some reason down the road you need to take your picture and that associated metadata to another application, chances are that stuff is going to be able to be read as long as they also follow those industry standard formats. We also have thumbnails. These get installed on every single device that you install Mylio Photos on, and these are tiny, tiny files. They're about 1% the size of the original, and they're just little pictures that let you browse. These are going to be the ones you see when they show up in the grid, and they're just very small, and they're great for browsing a lot of things at once, and they take up very little space. The next step up from that is optimized images. These are kind of medium-sized files, but they are visually indistinguishable in most cases from your original quality files. The cool thing about them is they take up about 5% the size of the original. They look great on most screens, and you can even print them up to a 5x7. So when you have the option to have optimized images on your phone, it gives you a great viewing experience without having to take a ton of storage space. And then finally, we have our original quality files. And these can get quite large depending on the type of file that you're working with. You might have a really small JPEG, or you might have a really big archival TIFF file, or even video files, things that take up a lot of space. Those are your original full resolution files. So keep these terms in mind as we go back through this. And if at the end you want to see this slide again, just let me know and we can pull that back up. So moving on, as you get into setting a sync policy with Mylio, the sync policy being what tells Mylio what to store on every single device, at a minimum, on every device that you see in the dashboard under devices in your Mylio, every single one of those devices is going to have the catalog, which is that database file. It's going to have your metadata, which are those XMP files, and it will have thumbnails. Anything above and beyond that is also controlled by the sync policy, but at a minimum, every single device will have these three things. So know that when you add a device, these three things are going to always be on every single device. All right, so next up we have a file size comparison. I want to give you kind of a visualization of the difference between a thumbnail, an optimized, and an original file. And this is just good for kind of being able to see what Mylio is capable of and what it's doing kind of behind the scenes as it chooses which files to put where. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to my preview app. And I have 3 files up right now. And actually, let me pull up Finder first. I have these same files here in my Finder. I have a raw file, an optimized, and an original edited. So this is a full-size JPEG edited of this original. And there's my thumbnail. Now, I'm going to go ahead and switch to a slightly different view here. Let's go ahead and look at this as the list. And this shows us our file sizes. So our raw file here at the top, you can see this is a 30 megabyte file. That's a big, big file. We have an edited version of that. So once that's edited and saved as a JPEG, that drops it down to 4.7 megabytes. But even that can add up on different devices. What we have here is our optimized. This is the one that's about 5% the size of the original and will be on most of your devices as long as you have enough space. And that takes up only 512K. Much, much smaller, and yet visually nearly indistinguishable from that original. And then of course we have our thumbnail, which is the tiny one, which is only 23K. To see what these look like kind of here in real life, let's go ahead and take a look here at our original. Great looking photo. You can zoom in on this. You have all of the pixels here to work with. You can take it, you can open it up, whatever editors you want. This is your original version. If we jump to the optimized, can you really tell a difference? It's visually almost indistinguishable. Now I do see on this particular image a tiny bit more detail in the original here in the whiskers, but it's very, very minimal. Optimized images give you a great viewing experience on most of your devices without having to have the full size files living there. So that's what the process that, or the purpose rather, that optimized files hold. Your thumbnails, those minimum size files, these are tiny. They look great in the grid, but if you try to zoom in and blow them up, they are gonna look pixelated. They're not gonna look great, but they're great for those small devices, especially like on a phone. You don't need a lot there, and maybe you don't need to have even optimized versions of all of your pictures. Sometimes just the thumbnail for browsing is all you need. So that gives you a visual representation of those different file types and what they look like. All right, so let's switch over to actual sync policy presets. And these are in Mylio and get assigned to every single device that you add. At a minimum, it has to be catalog only. That's what I mentioned earlier, where you have the catalog, the thumbnails, and your metadata. This sync policy is best for small storage devices. Let's say maybe you're using an older mobile phone, but you want to have Mylio there, you want to be able to browse, but it just really doesn't have a lot of space to store stuff. Set that to catalog only. This is great for tablets that are maybe older and have very minimal storage space as well. Next up, we have SpaceSaver. This is the default that every phone, every tablet, and every computer is going to get set with. Once you add one of those devices, it automatically will put it to SpaceSaver. So if you want to minimize it, you have to manually change it to catalog. But what SpaceSaver does is it includes everything with the catalog, plus as many of those optimized images that will fit as possible. So what this does is it gives you a much better viewing experience, especially when you're on a larger screen like a tablet or a computer. Even if you're not connected to the internet, even if your vaults are not connected, when you have those optimized images, you can view those images fairly large and still be able to browse and do things with your library much more efficiently than you can with just thumbnails. So that's what SpaceSaver does. Then we go on to things like a vault. A vault is going to be any device that you designate to hold everything. So this is going to be a full copy of that catalog, the metadata, the thumbnails, all of the optimized, and all of your originals. So this is best for external storage, like an external hard drive, if you have a NAS or a RAID, and even if you have a computer that has a very, very large hard drive and a ton of storage space, you can designate a computer as a vault. Typically, we don't recommend that, but you certainly can if your computer has the available storage. So vaults are going to hold everything. The other one that you want to probably know about here is one that's called Everything. And this is very similar to a vault. The only difference is if you have a device designated as Everything, you're not going to get the alerts to keep it in sync. It's not probably something that a lot of you are going to use. Most people are going to probably stick to Vault, and that would be my recommendation. But this can come in handy sometimes as well for secondary drives and offsite storage. Then you have a few other specific case-driven presets that you can choose from. You have highest rated. So if you've got a laptop with a good size storage, but maybe not enough to store everything, maybe you want to store the catalog plus all of the originals for your 4 and 5 star images. Or photos only lets you have the catalog plus originals of all your photos. What this does is it makes all the photos, the image files, available at original quality, but keeps the video files, those larger files that probably take up a ton more space, those will be kept on your vaults and you'll have to grab those on demand. Travel backups are really handy. This is great for those little SSD drives, especially if you have an iPad or a laptop that you travel with. This will have, again, that catalog and originals for everything from the past 3 months. So let's go ahead and jump forward here and do a little bit. I'm going to walk through in Mylio Photos what these different things look like, where you can find them, where you can change them, and how that affects what's on each device. So let me jump back over here to Mylio, and I'm going to go to my dashboard. And you can see here I have a very wide variety of devices connected to my account. Now, you may or may not have as many devices. There's no right or wrong answer here. But up here we've got my Mac, I have an iPad and an iPhone, and I have a variety of storage devices. Now you'll see down here at the bottom under Drives and Clouds, I have several that are designated here as vaults. These are devices that hold my entire library, and I have a few of them. At Mylio, we recommend that you have at least 2, and in some cases having 3 is good, so you can have 2 locally and 1 off-site. So for me, I have my Synology, which is a NAS that I have here in my office. I have a big external hard drive, and I have a little SSD drive that is just barely big enough to hold my entire library. It's going to be running out of space here pretty soon. And then I have for my offsite storage, I have Mylio Drive Plus. So those are my vaults. Everything else that I have here has a different sync policy, which controls what's stored on that device. So let's take a look at what I have here on my MacBook Pro. I have a good amount of storage here on this device. So I have it set to SpaceSaver, but with some exceptions. So if I go here to click on Device Sync Policies, up here at the top, we have a preset for SpaceSaver. And because I've added some exceptions, which we'll talk about those here in a little bit, that's why there's a little asterisk. But my device here as a whole is set to SpaceSaver. If I need to, I can always click on this and I can choose catalog only or choose another preset if I need to. If I go over here to my iPad, again, I've got a decent amount of storage on my iPad. If I go here to my device sync policies, again, I have it set to SpaceSaver with a handful of sync collections, that's what the asterisk here means, that override that SpaceSaver policy and add additional things. It's the same with my phone. And this one actually, I just have to SpaceSaver. I don't have anything overriding this. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this as an example here in a few minutes. We'll add some additional stuff to my phone so you can see what that looks like. But right now, this is just set to SpaceSaver. If I wanna change this, I can hit catalog only, then you would say apply changes, and that changes what is being stored on your particular device, in this case, my phone. I'm gonna put that back here to SpaceSaver for now though. All right, if we go down here and take a look at this crucial drive, under device sync policies, you can see it's set to vault. That means that everything, all of my files, again, the database, the catalog, all of my metadata, thumbnails, optimized, and originals are all being stored on this device. So you have full control of what is stored where using these sync policy presets. Let me go ahead and I'm gonna pause for a moment and take a look at the chat and see if there's anything that needs to be answered just as far as what we've gone through before we jump into customizing these. And we're just going to do that at high level because I have an entire session that goes a little bit more in depth, but we'll do a little bit of customization here. So let's see here. I'm just taking a look here through the chat, seeing what we have. We'll get to Deborah's question at the end here. All right, errors. All right. Perfect. John says he's not sure what the everything sync policy does. So everything is very similar to a vault. It still tells it to put your catalog, your metadata, your thumbnails, optimized, and originals on that device. But what it does a little bit differently is when you designate something as a vault, Mylio prioritizes vaults and will actually send you reminders. You'll get notifications up here if you have a vault that's unplugged. Maybe it's on a computer, say at work, that hasn't been synced for a while. It'll give you notifications saying that that device needs to be synced up. If you would prefer not to get those kind of notifications because that's a secondary device, you don't update it very often, it's kind of there just as a backup and you're not that worried about it. You don't want to see those notifications, you find them annoying. Instead of having this listed as vault, you can switch this to everything. It still keeps all of the same information there. It just turns off those little naggy warnings. All right, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and jump back to the presentation. And I do see that there are other questions there, but we'll go ahead and get to those at the end because some of them are on different areas of the app. All right, so for those who want to have a little bit more granular control, we have something called sync collections. And this lets you prioritize storage for different workflows and add custom syncing rules, like saying you want something for a rate that's supposed to be, say, rating, not rating. Rating, date, folders, categories, you can choose what is stored on each device very, very specifically. So here's a few examples. Scenario number one, maybe you want to have only your 5-star family photos on your phone. So your family photos, maybe family history, you want to have those always at optimized quality on your phone. So we're going to create a sync collection for optimized by rating, label, and flag. You're going to choose your 5-star images, and by category, choose family and family history. You'll go in and it'll add these filters, and you'll be able to add that to your phone or whatever device you want. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. I'm going to jump here into Mylio. Let's pick my phone. And this is going to allow us to override this SpaceSaver policy. So you keep SpaceSaver set. You always choose a preset first. And then you can go down here and add exceptions. So in this case, you can choose to add exceptions for originals or add exceptions for optimized. In this case, I want to choose optimized because for my family photos, I don't necessarily need that full resolution file, but I do want to have a good quality file that I can look at and browse and enjoy without having to wait for the internet to pull a higher quality file from Mylio Drive or from one of my online vaults. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use add a sync collection. So you go ahead and click that button, and that brings up a browser that lets you choose what you want to have as part of the sync collection. So in this case, if I just want to have my best family photos, what I'm going to choose is I'm going to go here under rating, label, and flag. And you can choose your 5-star, or maybe you want your 4 and 5-star. So that pulls up that level of image. And then maybe you've taken the time to add categories to things and you just want your family and your family history photos. So anything that's a 4 and 5-star, family and family history, all of those will then be added to this quick collection. I can go ahead and say done. And we can go 4-5 family. And click save. You can call it whatever you like. And now that has been added here as a new sync collection and will be saved to my device in addition to what SpaceSaver already puts there. So that overrides and adds an exception for the categories that you just added. I'm actually not going to add that right now. I'm going to go ahead and click that and remove it. And you can see that it's really easy to add exceptions for things. If you want to add exceptions for originals, you would just click on the originals tab and do that same thing. So let's go ahead and look at another scenario that you can do this with. And that is, let's say you want to back up only your 4 and 5-star originals on Mylio Drive Plus. So Mylio Drive Plus is an optional add-on where you can store full resolution files in the cloud using Mylio Photos. It is so easy to use, it's fully integrated, but it is an additional charge. So perhaps you might not want to send everything there. Perhaps you have a really large library and setting your Mylio Drive Plus as a vault might not be within your budget. So you want to keep your storage, you want to manage how much storage you're using and manage your cost. So you only want to put your 4 and 5-star originals on Mylio Drive Plus. And again, you would create that sync collection. You do it under the original tab and you'd add that rating, label, and flag, 5-star and 4-star. So that's a really great way to do that. Another option here would be to keep your recent originals on your laptop for editing. So this is great for people who like to travel, or maybe you just want to take your laptop and go sit at the coffee house across town. You want to do some editing. Maybe you don't want to have to rely on them having reliable Wi-Fi. So you want to make sure you have all of your recent originals on your laptop at full quality. So what you're going to do is go into the by date range and choose last 90 days. And under by file extension, choose the RAW format. If you shoot in RAW, you can choose other formats if you like as well. And common ones here are going to be CR3. Those are going to be Canon RAW files, ARW for Sony, RAF is Fujifilm. Whatever RAW format your camera shoots, you can go ahead and make sure that those are available in their full quality form on your laptop locally. So even if you're not connected to the internet, you can still do your editing. So that's what this looks like down here. So we talked a little bit about this already, how to create a sync collection. What you're going to do is go into Mylio Photos. You're going to choose the device you want to work with. Click on Device Sync Policies. And you'll have already set a preset up here. So the preset is the first step. Then you go down here to the bottom and you add sync collections. You click on Add Sync Collections. Choose the different parameters that you want to use. So this filters your library to show specific things. When you click done, it'll let you save that, and then it will show here in the list. So for instance, the exceptions that I have here in my library, I have it set to show all of my original 2024 and 2025 photos. And then I also have it set to show everything as original that I have marked as portfolio. So those are just some of the exceptions that I've set in my own collection, and sync collections makes this work really, really well. So I can take my laptop at any time, go sit someplace off the grid. I don't need to be connected to the internet, and I still have all of my recent pictures here from 2024 and 2025 that I can work with and edit locally on my machine. And so what this does is it allows me to have full control of what is stored on each device, because each device kind of has a different purpose. So my phone, my iPad, those are typically just for browsing. I might do a little bit of editing on my iPad every once in a while, especially if I'm traveling and that's the only device I brought with me for that purpose. My Mac is something that it's mostly on my desk, but sometimes I take it out. And then my storage devices are just that. Those are places where I want to store things. Most of them are vaults, except for my travel backup, because that simply will not hold my entire library. So I have then prioritized this to only have my last 3 months of stuff, plus some other things that I have done an override with. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how you can use sync policies, what they mean, how they function, and how you can customize them. Now, creating sync collections and customization, that's kind of a optional last step. Most people are going to be just fine using those built-in sync policy presets and apply one of those to your devices, and that's going to do everything you need it to do. But if you need more, sync collections are there. And I think Lori has already shared the link for the sync collection coffee break. We did a whole session on that, went in depth. So if you would like to learn more about sync collections, I invite you to check that episode out. And hopefully that'll answer some of your questions about that. All right, so just to kind of recap what we have going on today, sync policies are there to help you control storage and accessibility. Sync collections give you customized sync control. And choosing those right settings are going to be the tools to make sure that each device has the files that you need when you need them. I do want to thank you guys all for being here and remind you that next week we're going to have live Q&A on Tuesday and Thursday. Friday we'll have coffee break. We're going to have Michael Dearworth from our support team. He is awesome. He is one of our senior support techs. He's been with the company for a really long time. He knows this program inside and out and will be able to help and troubleshoot and give you things that you can do to prevent and fix sync issues should you run into them. It's going to be a great session. He's an awesome presenter, and I'm really excited to have him on Coffee Break next week. So hopefully you guys can join us. With that, I want to wish you guys a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.